Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to TechGig webinar series, our endeavor to empower techies. Today's webinar is 11th in the series and is about the cycle from product development to customer development. Our guest speaker today is Girish Lakshmi Narayan, Director, Clear Global. Also joining us today is Mr. Amit Gupta, Product Head of TechGig.com. He'll be asking questions on your behalf during the discussion. Girish has been a multitasker in his 12 years in the tech world. He has donned the hat of a CTO and co-founder for WebGear, an online PR and monitoring company, as well as Instacall, now funded by Subir Bhatia of Hotmail. He has been the tech head for a number of Times properties, such as iTimes, PR Power, Times R&D, and Times Music. The presentation will continue for the next 45 minutes and your questions will be taken in the last 15 minutes. You can post your questions in the meanwhile on techgig.com through the chat available in the webinar software. Without further ado, I introduce to you our guest speaker, Mr. Girish Lakshmi.
Thank you. Hi and welcome. I hope you're getting this reception all right. The whole of the presentation was inspired by a book on it called 4 Steps to Winning. It's one of the groundbreaking books in technology web development space. It's written by a guy called Steve Blank, and he kind of changed the paradigm of how we market products and conceive of them, and what it means to make successful products on the internet especially. So I'm going to start off. Traditional model of development is the product development methodology, and the whole idea is to move from there into a customer-centric development. Now, for this to happen, I need to make a case of what is wrong with product development as it is right now, or the methodology that we follow by itself. So I'm going to jump into the presentation right away. The product development methodology as it stands right now, it looks something like this. What we do is we start with a concept. We have an idea in our heads, or we probably even raise the first seed round of money with a business plan. It all starts with a vision or an idea, a problem maybe that founders themselves are facing, or sometimes it's a techie-oriented, a technology-inspired problem. Because something is possible, we try and see if we can make a product out of it. Sometimes we hear about it from a friend or two who speaks passionately about an existing problem within his workspace or his workflow. Or it's something that's bothering us, and we imagine that there could be other people who have the same issue. And we go ahead and raise some funding or self-fund it or work on it during our spare time, develop the product. That's the second phase. Then we have the whole alpha beta testing part of it. Many times what happens is, if you're talking about big guns over here, big corporates, there will be a lot of funds, marketing might behind it already. So what happens is the marketing team typically would have developed a collateral which explains the beauty of the product to the customers. They would identify target customers and markets. The business development team or the founders themselves would have created a Gantt chart of things that need to be done, handed it over to the product team. Product team would have already finished developing the product based on that spec sheet. The spec sheet will be trashed out with various brainstorming sessions within the company. This is how we all do it. This is how it has always been done. And then there is a lot of, sometimes even a sales team has been hired, because we need to create buzz in the market. We send out press releases. We actually, want beta testers. People already signed up. We probably take even ads out. We spend a lot of money on that. So it can go from anywhere between a very small scale garage operation to a multi-million-dollar operations. We've seen, in some cases, I'm not exaggerating, about $800 million burned before product launch, or spent or backed up by that kind of funding before product launch. And then there is that final moment when all the things that are there in the business plan, the VCs are waiting in the wings for that day when we are launching. We are hoping the customers will come and buy in hordes, and our business plan is proved right, and all our hypothesis is proved right. And traditionally, this doesn't happen this way. This seems great in terms of at first look, but we've all seen what this produces.
So I'm sure this is, I agree, this would be even true for people who are working in companies. So not just for entrepreneurs, but people who are launching products within companies.
Yes, there are two. I would still make a subdivision and an exception there. If you're working in a company which is already a success, let's say, suppose you are working in a company which sells, I don't know, oil or something. You kind of already figured out your business plan. Somebody is already kind of blazing the trail for you and gone where all the difficulties have been solved, and you know that there is a market for it. You know how to produce it, and now probably you're bringing in a new product into that, which is a deviation of the same product.
Right.
Then it's not that applicable. You're still kind of, the principles still help, but what you've done is already discovered the business model, and it's very easy therefore for you to kind of follow that path. So in a big company, if you're beating the same path, then it's not really a product. It's not, you're not enough stuff, really, is what I'm saying. So in startups, definitely. In big companies where there is a new market they want to capture, let's say you're Reliance, but you want to now get into art, which you've never gotten into, as far as I know. Reliance has not. So, but if they want to get into it, then they have an opportunity.
Okay.
Right. Times is trying to get into a social business, social networking business, and that's obviously is like a startup.
Right.
Of course, you'll have bigger funds to dispose with, and a bigger reach and marketing muscle, but you still have to solve the equation of the business model and viability of it.
Okay.
So typically, this is how it flows, and there are many problems with this. So I kind of described what happens here. The concept around you put your marketing collaterals together. You probably put a sales and business development team. Business development team for that could be the founders themselves. Then the product development comes in. During product development, what you're doing is creating markov materials. You communicate that to other people. This is where the collaterals. You create positioning already while the product is being developed. You even decide on the logo and the colors and everything else. Alpha beta test. While this is going on, you probably have a PR agency. You hired, you want to create early buzz, you do marketing gimmicks. You even say at that moment is when you probably hire your first VP of sales, and also start hiring your first sales staff. So your team is building, your burn rate is already high, and every day that you don't launch the project, you are more worried about your cash flow. Then first launch, first ship, you want to create a lot of demand, branding exercises start, then you start putting up hoardings if you're that kind of an organization. And then your sales organizations has a big forecast for the end of the year where they want to have 12 members or 20 members or whatever it is. While all this is happened when there's not even one customer. So there is a lot of tension, there is a lot of confusion, and because of the confusion, behavior changes. We tend to pile up on features, we tend to pile up on techniques. We want to grab at everything that could secure our future. This is a tendency. The problem with this, if you want to get into the details of it, is what is statistically given us is a success ratio of 1 in 10. It's a more than a bit of a gamble, I would say, because you're not even talking about 1 in 6, which is a roll of a dice success ratio. Is very technology driven, founder driven, technology driven, rather than the market driven, customer driven. Sales and marketing costs pile up because you're putting in that kind of effort even before the product is ever been tested. First customer releases make or break for you, and a lot of times companies know their fate the moment the first release is done, and there is this whole trip of, oh my God, it hasn't worked, and what do we do, and where do we go from here, and there is firing of staff. Sales VP gets fired 1 month after product launch many times because the product team thinks the sales guy is not able to sell the product. Now, this is what happens. Business plan hypothesis is delusional because most of these numbers are driven out of calculators rather than actual feedback from customers and actual trial runs in the market space. And you simply do not know if you're wrong, and it kind of eats away at you. This has happened to me. It's happened to, I'm sure, many of you guys who are listening. If you're founders of startups or product managers at corporates, build and they will come. It is the basic philosophy. Build and they will come. The problem is they may not. And when they don't come, that more examples of them not coming than arriving.
So you're saying that, but in real life we do tend to do a bit of research before we actually go into the product development lifecycle.
Yeah.
So before we raise a fund,
Yeah.
we do a bit of research. We talk to our customers. We identify their need gaps, and we think, look, that this product might be able to solve this, right?
Yeah. Yeah. That's exactly what it is. It's born out of that spirit. But then, as you said just now, the product development life cycle. The word life cycle suggests that there is a framework involved. There is a methodology involved, which there is a mastery of project management, product management. There is job titles involved, which says product manager. There is no customer development manager, right? So even though there is this tendency, look, we do talk. When you get into it, if you don't have a framework for it, it's nothing, nobody to blame. It's just that we never needed it till the internet came along. And the old traditional methods are still being applied to the internet, simply do not work. And we'll see what that framework means. And the same thought we will compare at the end of the slide, if it still makes sense to just talk to customers and bid, or follow a methodology which becomes the leading methodology behind which product development methodology is aligned.
Sure.
So we simply have no process to manage customer development, is what I'm saying. And that seems to be acceptable. That's another worry. Because everybody does this. Everybody's problem is the same thing. What do these companies have in common? I don't know if you guys have heard of Dropbox. It's a major success. They're valued in millions of dollars right now and have millions of users and growing every day virally. It's very odd for a company which does something as hardcore in technology as backing up. It's a productivity software designed for teams, something like that to grow virally. It's not associated typically with that. And Quora Meetup.com is, again, huge success. Airbnb is already valued in billions. Visual Website Optimizer is an Indian example of a company product which has succeeded using the customer development principles. Zobni is a toolbar you use. It's a Gmail plugin which shows you profiles of people who emailed you.
Yeah.
Zobni, yeah. I think I was spelled it wrong. XOBNY. Yeah. So these guys have all the new breed of successes that have come out of this table of the customer development thought process. Meetup and Dropbox especially has a wonderful presentation itself floating around the web on how they adopted customer development. They were a massive failure in the beginning. For 3 years, they didn't have any customers at all. Pretty much, they ran into thousands, which simply doesn't work for their business model. There is a free entry there. It's not even a free trial. So it's a very small percentage would convert and the pricing was very low. And from about, I think 30,000 users or something after 3 years, they started adopting it and then they realized that they have to speak to customers. And they understood what was going on and using what they learned, they publicly credited to Steve Blank actually. They changed their viral engine as it were without making too many changes to the product. And within about 15 months, from about 30,000, they were 1.5 million users, and still growing. So that's the kind of growth rate they have achieved. They are one of the biggest proponents of this theory. All of these guys have been publicly quoted as using the customer development theory. I think the whole of it comes out of one tendency. Is my personal opinion. It's called the Malkovich bias. It's a tendency to believe that everyone else uses the web as you do. Examples of this could be, I don't know if you heard of any or heard yourself say this. That needs to go above the fold because no one scrolls, no one clicks on ads these days. Privacy is important, or privacy is unimportant. People don't want to download stuff, or many of these myths or beliefs is because I believe them. I don't click on ads personally, but it doesn't. I'll be amazed that there will be an application which simply aggregates ads sometimes, and that will be a viral application, and that beats me because I would have never even had that idea because I simply don't think that applies to me. And this is, we all fall for it. And customer development methodology is one of the ways of disillusioning, coming out of this, out of this illusion that we have about this.
So basically, you're saying that these are the assumptions that we would have made about our customer, saying that our customers would not click on ad, or our customer privacy is not so important or maybe important. So we are saying that we have made certain assumptions about our customers without validating them.
Absolutely. Okay. Without asking them, without taking a percentage, without knowing, without really knowing, out of 100 how many, and really then saying, okay, we are tailoring them, very clearly saying this is the customer base, being comfortable with people who are not like you, who will never probably buy your product. That's what is important, to know who your customers are and who are not as well, and how do you go methodically over and over where anybody can repeat this process rather than depending on a human person's perception of being Steve Jobs, for example. Not everybody is. So how do you then create a framework by which you can work and so you can repeat this success over and over again? So that's what it is. The new way is some of the, the paradigm shifts. Most startup businesses models are initially wrong. This we've seen out of experience. I don't know when this book came along. I think it's been about 10 years, 15 years now. But there have been hundreds of successes. And most of them did not start with that. Groupon, I forgot to list Groupon as one of the companies that uses the same technique. Groupon started as a point which did a completely different thing, very, very serious application, ended up finally doing something that they learned from customers, whether in their website. So the point was where people would come and make a point about something. They would come and say, I think we should all Wi-Fi enable New York, or Obama should step down. Any petition really that you would go and people would start supporting it, and then they realized that the only petitions that were really working were things like Coke should not cost $2; it should cost only $1. They should reduce it for independence, something like that. And then they realized that millions of people piling on those areas where it was consumer related, and then they start speaking to restaurants. People like this who sells goods and services to give it away free, and that's when the business model occurred to them.
Yeah, one of the two of the examples that come to my mind on this point are, one is this Snapdeal.com.
Yeah.
So the company I know, Zasper, they were earlier into deals. So a coupon booklet which you get along with the credit card statement.
Yeah.
These guys were into that. So they were into deals earlier, before launching Snapdeal.
Yeah.
So they were into that model. They thought that was a good model.
Yeah.
But now with the success of Snapdeal, we understand that how they actually were maybe not so scalable in that sense.
Yeah.
And then they shifted that to this model.
Yeah. So you can fail on many fronts. The book divides it into 4 stages, and each of those steps is called the 4 steps to epiphany. Epiphany is creation, and each of those steps you could fail at. And what they were doing is, I think they found their customers, but they couldn't validate it over and over again. They couldn't find a business model which they could repeat it at scale. So they could have failed there. So all they had to do was pivot it. We call it pivots here. The process of iteration in search of a successful business model is called pivot. One of the philosophies is learn early, learn often. Instead of get the business plan right, instead go with a flexible one and then kind of keep learning. Focus on customers and markets from day one. Instead of product and features. Emphasis on learning and discovery before execution, and sales. So it's not about selling as much as listening. It's about discovery more than execution. So it assumes a mastery in execution, it assumes mastery in sales, and goes beyond that and say, what are you selling, and have you got that right?
So basically, you're saying that if you are failing at the initial stage, do not lose heart, because most of the companies fail.
Most companies do,
right?
Yeah.
But rather than taking a negative feedback out of it, just take the learnings out of it and just shift little bit. So that you can actually change.
Every time you fail, you are closer to the goal. So the more you fail, it will probably be the next time. It's probably more guaranteed that it will definitely be the next time that you will get. And pivoting that way, as long as the iterations are based on actual listenings from the customers and not your own inside the building, thought processes, then you will definitely get there. Right? So we'll see how that works. This is the customer development methodology visualized. If you'll see, it's the 4 stages: company building comes the last stage. The first stage is the customer discovery stage. And the customer discovery stage is a very odd stage. If you see there is an arrow pointing here, which means it keeps going round and round, which assumes a couple of few iterations at least, if not tens of them, before you go to move on to the next stage. So failure is obvious. There is no, the circle itself automatically says all of these in fact have many iterations before they figure it out. So customer discovery, till you discover your customer, you go round and round and round, trying to get it right and iterate very rapidly. Till then you keep pivoting. This is a very pivot-oriented stage, and they sometimes go together as well. So see, if you start validating the customer, we'll come to exactly what that is. And if it doesn't work, sometimes it doesn't work because customer discovery was wrong. So you kind of go back to that and then iterate over and over again. Failure is a part of this methodology, and you are already starting with enough breadth of air to be able to go deeper into the chasm, as it were, right? So everything is a learning process. Everything is, it's not a trial and error process, mind you, but it's a learning process, a testing process. There's no harm in testing many times. So that's what we're doing. It's not shooting in the dark, as we were doing earlier. That was shooting in the dark. But this is breaking it down to as many steps as possible, starting from where the demand is, and then kind of moving up.
Girish, do you have some practical experience? Because look, we have seen these kind of theories before also,
sure,
but or maybe heard about it, little bit about them.
Yeah.
But somehow in practical life, have you ever seen this applying yourself on these kind of things? Because if you can give those examples as well while you are saying customer discovery, what exactly does it mean customer discovery? So that it will be more clear.
Absolutely. So I can give my own example. I can give many actually. Let me give one which can apply to this. There was a product which we did for my company, which was a media measurement product. So what we're doing was I know it sounds a very complex thing, but that's the whole point of it. We were going and pitching it as a media measurement product to all the PR agencies. These are public relations agencies. Those were our primary target, or that's what we thought. And we were going and pitching to them in India, in Europe. We met many of them, maybe about 100 till now. And each one of them, after I met about 100 of them, I kind of realized that there was a common thread running through all of them. It was an odd one. It was incidental to the whole meetings, but it was always there. They all used a rudimentary Google Alerts system to be able to track what my software did in a more sophisticated way. Right. So one of the things is they had already tried the lowest version of my software in Google Alerts.
Right.
But mine is a much more sophisticated system, which I called media monitoring, social media monitoring. My wordings were such. And I remember after meeting hundreds of these and emailing them, I had 25 clients. We had 25 clients. And then one thing that I realized was there was no problem in the product. It's in the way we were talking about it. People were not able to wrap their heads around media monitoring as a keyword. Like I'm sure you are also a little bit in the dark right now. And then I had to explain that to them. And it was all dependent on that, how successful I was in educating them about the product. And it's always difficult to educate someone about anything because you get very small attention spans people have. So the sale was very hard. Then I came back and then I remember we realized that Google Alerts was what was there. We changed the system to include Google Alerts. We could pipe Google Alerts into our system and add analytics on top of it. And it came out in a meeting naturally to me while we were doing this saying, do use Google Alerts. Instead of introducing the product as a media monitoring product, I simply said, do you use Google Alerts? They said yes, because I know that they will say yes. And then I moved on to saying, well, we just add analytics on top of Google Alerts. It's like saying have you used Google Analytics? Most people have. So this is like Google Analytics on top of Google Alerts. Suppose Google Analytics took Google Alerts and chatted the beautiful thing out, be able to visualize it. That's what we do. Now, bingo, people got it within a sentence. My elevator pitch was in place. All of this happened because I actually met customers. I actually saw them using it on their BlackBerrys as I was speaking to them. I recall this moment for me of epiphany was the moment when a person I was speaking to received a Google alert and I could kind of sneak into his BlackBerry and see the alert coming. And it was the same search that he had set up on my machine, my trial. So, and now we have about 400 of these PR agencies. Each PR agency is worth 50 clients for us. It's phenomenal. It's phenomenal. We have effectively about 5,000 customers. Just because we changed the positioning of the product. We called it G-Alerts instead of Google Alerts so that people get it. Even the name changed from Clear Insights, we changed it to galerts.com. Okay. And you won't believe the response. Because suddenly, my SEO value is not media monitoring, if you look at it. 1 in 1 million people would have heard of it. Google Alerts, 1 in 2 Google have heard of it. And so everybody I could pitch to, everybody I could speak to, everybody could carry my message. And my press release became more open-ended, and it could get more spaces, could fit into more spaces on the web. So there's a huge followed because of that. So and that's because I was repeating it. And if I was stuck with that one product, I would not have succeeded. And the sales cost was phenomenally high.
So in this sense, the customer discovery you've done is basically still the customer is same. You have not changed your customer, but maybe the way to pitch to the same customer you have changed, and so is your product.
Absolutely.
Is that also part of customer discovery?
It's also a part of customer discovery. You will see what works with the customer.
Right.
So customer discovery is also about saying what emotional part of the customer ticks for your product, and finding the market more than the customer. The market is a combination of the customer and what ticks in him or in her. So that's when you found your market. Okay. Right? You could call a PR agency your customer, but if you call it a CIO product, many times that has a better sales value. And there are many examples like this as well, where they've just targeted a job type in their product name, and then the successor suddenly just shot up.
Right.
Because people are able to picture it on themselves. So much easier to simply call, like tech gig, very simple technology gig. So there's no mystery there, what it does. So any other name would have confused people.
Right.
Now we'll get into each of these steps, but before that, one of the things that is very important to understand is an underlying theme called knowing your market. You can belong to any of these 3 types of market: an existing market, or a resegmented market, or a new market. An existing market is a product like Google Plus, which is trying to get into an existing market where Facebook is already there, Twitter is already there, and trying to sneak in between them and trying to get your own, or make your own by way of performance, maybe by way of feature sets, by way of some kind of number game. So that's what an existing market is, where you differentiate based on your performance. We are bigger, or faster, or better in some way, in some metric. Resegmented market could be a market where you are doing the same thing. You are going to an existing market, but redefining it in a way that now you can do it differently. It's the same end behavior,
right,
but the methodology could be totally different.
Right.
You're reframing it. Many examples could be if you bring the whole thing onto a mobile platform, right, that's reframing the market. A matrimonial service which was in the newspapers comes onto online, that's resegmenting the market, because now you're doing the same thing but in a completely new way,
right,
which now solves it in a much higher level, because suddenly everybody across the web can do it, not just people who write, it becomes much faster, therefore.
Right.
New market is you're coming up with something. You're coming up with something which is completely new. Twitter is an example. Nobody had that before. And then Twitter had to educate people. There are different challenges on each market and different business models that fit into each market. We'll see what they are in the next slides. Okay, how are we doing on time? Okay, so I think we need to hurry up a little bit here. One of the heuristics, one of the learnings so far, and experience in customer development teaches these things. There are no facts inside the building, so any opinions. So one of the main themes of customer development is get out of the building. As long as you're sitting in the building, you will never find customers. It's impossible. Get out of the building could mean a lot of emails, phone calls, as well as actually getting out and sitting in front of customers. Develop for the few, not the many. Early users make the company very, very important to get early users. Early evangelists, he calls them. MVP for the first release, minimum viable product, because you found your market. Find out what it is, the minimum feature set their market is willing to buy. The market is the customers that you found. What is the minimum they want to buy, not what you want to ship. And there is a methodology to actually find that and be absolutely sure that that's exactly what they want. And we'll see how that is done. the customer discovery is the first phase. Customer discovery starts with, basically the theme is you have to stop selling. It's not about selling because we haven't yet discovered your strength. You haven't yet discovered what it is that they want, and therefore to be confident enough that you have that to solve it, right? And start listening instead. And once you do that, once you have a suspicion, it's all a suspicion really. Once you have a suspicion that there is a problem, you test that as a hypothesis. It's not a proven thing, it's a hypothesis that you have, you need to test against the circumstances. So you test the problem first and then the product, rather than just the product. Selling is a way of simply testing the product sometimes, not the problem. So when you go pitch, there are two different types of pitches that you do customers. You go and tell the customer saying, I think you have this problem. Don't jump into, you know what, I have a solution. I know you have some problem, without even ever stating it, kind of assuming that here is a solution. But instead go and say, I think you need to be able to search the World Wide Web. Yes, good, we have Google. So that's the way we kind of come across customer discovery. We'll go into more detail. Very quickly, I'm running through all the 4 steps of Epiphany. Second is customer validation. Customer validation consists of developing a repeatable sales process, not only that works with your friends and family, but also with strangers, your target market. Evangelists or your first customers, proven sales roadmap, you need to have proof. You need to have sold something. Money should have exchanged hands, not just promises. Understand the sales cycle. You should have a complete and in-depth understanding of why your price point works and what sales channels you're going to use. Can you sell it on phone? Can you sell it by email? In what way can you sell it? What is the time scale of a sale? Do I need to meet them 8 times, 10 times? How fast can I meet them? What are the typical, are the CEOs? If the CEOs, how quickly can I get into them? So the whole, that whole understanding of the sales cycle has to be there. Do you have any real orders is a big question. Customer validation, you don't progress beyond this without real orders, right? Mind you, the product is not fully developed yet, but you can still have real orders pretty much. This is a beta version of the product, we can still have it. And finally, does it make sense financially? In the sense, does this is what you want? Is this what you can continue doing for the next 5 years and still make money? Make money is here profits. So making sense financially is not just revenue, but also profits. How much will you be spending? If you increase the sales team, will that cost be absorbed? Can you still make money? Can you upsell more products, upgrades as we call them? All these things come in over there. Now, engineering has an effect, major effect on engineering. One of the couple of slides I will just go into very quickly. Here is a visualize. If you look at the left side of the pane, you'll see that customer development engineering basically involves solving an unknown problem, right? It's a hypothesis that you're trying to solve with even the solution for which you don't know, right? This is pretty much what you're doing. And hypothesis, experiments, and therefore insights. So you start with a hypothesis, a suspicion that there is a problem, you experiment with it, and you get some insights. Experiment is by simply asking people, simply inferring, repeatedly asking customers, not yourself, and getting data out of them, and therefore insights from that. You pass it on to engineering, where, again, data, feedback, and insights. So the engineering itself comes back with many insights, saying, oh, this is possible, that is possible, and gives it back to the customer, right, through the customer development team. So this obviously means that the progress has to be very quick, and it has to be very incremental, minimum features, and customer validation. You are looking to validate customers, not a product team, right? The unit of progress here is not features, as it used to be in a product development methodology, which means, oh, how many features have we coded today? That's the unit of progress. How much progress have we made? But here, it's least about that engineering team, more about the product and the customer team, development team. And the unit of progress here is, how much more have we learned about our customers? Oh, we know this about our customers. We know this about our customers. They like this color. They don't like this. They like it when we have these many steps. They don't like this route. So A/B testing and those kind of things. So some of the techniques and tactics are A/B tests, which will be very, very important in this, because, as I said, one of the things that we did was an A/B test inadvertently. At that point in time, I wasn't big on customer development myself, but I kind of stumbled on it. And now I appreciate its value, because I kind of go back and say, what I did was an A/B test. A failed and B worked. and now I stuck to B. So much so that there was a difference of about 360 customers between A and B, with the same product. Extremely rapid continuous development. This can go up to 10 to 20 times per day. There are many times you can just ask the customer to come and sit with you. There are many customers who will do it. You can offer them a free subscription for a year if you like. And once they come and sit with you, you can just sit with them and code. And there are many other tactics which this suggests, but we'll not get into that right now. Just-in-time architecture as well. We don't prematurely scale. We scale just about in time as the demand flows, because we don't know which way the product is going, which metric to scale. Whether the photograph storages has to be scaled more, because we don't know whether that's important, right? Or the video storage, or just database,
Right.
So how do we know? So we don't spend time and cost money on premature scaling. We do scale just before, but just in time. And because there is an established system, there is a system for this as well. Maybe we can do another seminar where just the engineering part of it can be explored. But without this understanding, we can't explore the engineering tactics anymore.
So just to apply this, it looks very interesting to me.
Yeah.
Because when we earlier were reading the software engineering methodology, the waterfall model was the premier one, where you said you collect the requirements first from the customer, you design your product really well, so that it's able to scale up well.
Yeah.
So it's all in the design, right?
Yeah.
As they said. So you design it well, place all the things rightly, and then finally you go into the development cycle entirely, and then finally testing and releasing it to the market.
Yeah.
So if we go by this methodology, so in a way, even if we are a service provider, let's say I'm a service provider to my client, I can even suggest this kind of methodology for those people as well.
Absolutely.
Like, look, why are you investing so much into design if you are really not sure about your customers as well? We rather would want to iterate freely, and as in when the demand would come, maybe we would scale it up.
And isn't it great to have customers and great to have revenue coming in on day one? The customer development methodology is about confidence. It's about absolute dogged confidence that you will have money in your bank. Till you have that, no amount of product development or engineering techniques will ever solve it. And here you are basically designing to solve a problem. The problem not being the solution itself, but the problem being how quickly can we iterate it. That's the problem, right? Knowing the problem, the engineering is not geared, it's all its resources to solve one problem, which is the customer's problem. The engineering is geared to solve the more overlapping, the meta problem, as it were, where how quickly can we solve anything that has been presented to us as a problem. How quickly can we iterate it, how quickly can we pivot it. That's the problem engineering has to solve. So it goes beyond traditional engineering. It assumes some amount of skills, but it's just a way of looking at it. Not even skills, where engineering is sitting and optimized to deliver quickly rather than deliver absolutely perfectly.
That means even if you leave out few defects in the process,
which is
perfectly
fine. Which is fine. Most early evangelists are very, they know it's a buggy product. Some people put up with it for, Twitter for example is one of the buggiest products around. Most of the time whenever you see it, many times it's down. Twitter is known to go down in the US as well. So, which is fine. And because people can understand something like that, can encourage something like that. It's in all of us to do that.
So this entire methodology, the initial slide which you showed about the new market, about the resegmentation, or about the first one which was into existing market. So this entirely applies to mainly resegmentation as well as new. But this might not apply to the existing market, where they would anyway assume the minimum guarantee of a product in terms of being good enough.
Oh, so your hypothesis testing shifts from how are you better from your competitors,
right?
And how do you know they're not going to eat you, right? So your hypothesis is not so much finding a customer, but finding a customer who is disgruntled with your competitor, and finding a customer genuinely disgruntled, and you being able to fix that problem. So the questions would be that what do you find if your competitor is, God forbid, Google? Then you're going to go and say, what annoys you about Google? Do you use Google? When do you don't use Google? Have you ever tried to switch? If you did switch, what was it? For what reason? And many things like that. So then you're looking for that metric which customers think is important, not you, which then you can better on. And then you need to know that is it good enough for that person to make the switch, because there is a cost of switching as well. So will I switch from Google because I know I trust Google, I've trusted it for years. Why would I switch to a Bing? Now what is that cost? Is the benefit I get from using a product greater than the cost and the the familiarity that it's kind of induced in me? Right. So that is a question you are repeatedly testing with it. And once you test it, then you can go on. Sure. Yeah. So of course the market type determines what you test, but then for all three markets you still need to use the thing. And engineering more or less remains the same. The techniques remain the same. Customer creation is the next step, a third step. Grow from few to many. Now that you've proven your business model, you're making money, you've launched your product, now you're in business and you're profitable as well. And probably you can go get funding. And now you need to scale up because you don't want to stay at the same place. You want to get to 100 million marks in the next 5 years. You can then sit down and work out your position. Because now you're going not just to your early customers, which you're talking on the phone, you don't need positioning for that. You're explaining it to them. But collaterally on your website, in your colors, in your scheme, in your whole communication, how do you position yourself? By now it will be automatically clear to you. And if not, there is a framework for that as well, where you kind of figure it out for sure that this is the positioning that works best, and then you go out into the world. And you do a big launch now, not before that. You already have customers paying for you, for your service. You're already probably profitable, definitely revenue coming in, and then you do a launch. And then you make sure you can scale up as well. Then you have to have a model for demand creation as well. You need to know that you will be able to not just contact friends and family, which you can do, but you can only do it to a certain extent, but repeat that process at 100x. And what is the model for that? Is it Google Ads? Is it phone calls? Has it worked? Have we tested it? What is the ratio at which it works? Is it cost effective? So many things over there has to be tested. It's all about testing hypothesis, all about a series of assumptions that we're making repeatedly being tested and repeatedly failing as well, which is fine. But in the failing, it gives you another insight, which you can tweak. You're like a pilot who is kind of automatic all the time. You're tweaking your direction to reach wherever you want to reach, but with the framework over here, not just blindly. Company building is the final thing. I'm not going to get into these two because if you're starting off with the company, I just want to leave with the basics over here. You're going to be at that moment your management changes as growth happens. Founders lose out typically. They'll be the first casualties because founders are no longer effective. The founders at this moment are either transition themselves into a management team or they can move out of it, right? It's one of the things, and it becomes mission-centric, process-centric. Process becomes very important. Development becomes very important. Customer development, the earlier customer discovery part of it becomes less and less important, unless you are launching a new product for which a process again is put forward, right? And the process repeats. Sales growth needs to match market type. As we've seen, each market type requires different approaches. That if you're competing against Google, it's a different approach. Have you matched the growth that needs of that particular market? If you're not, you're going to go down anyway. So that is a repeated thing that you need to look at when you're building a company. We have now go back to the first step, which is the discovery process in more detail, the customer discovery process. This is going to be very, very interesting. Stay with me over here. Now, as I said, this is basically stating a hypothesis. That is where you're starting for a clean slate. You have a vision for an area of expertise which you think you can handle, whether it's the internet, whether it is greeting cards, whether it is social networking, whether it is search engines, whatever you are doing, whichever area you are in, you have a vision of where I want to get here, and I think I'm capable of doing something in this space. And then from the vision follows an idea. The idea could be something that you are facing as a problem, and you set out to solve that problem, or you heard of it, or you've seen it, or you've seen successful companies built out of that idea. And then, so you have a product hypothesis. All starts with that. There's no harm in having ideas over here, because ideas become the point of the arrow, the direction provider, which propels you forward. But then that need not be the direction. That becomes the energy that propels you forward. Customer and problem hypothesis, where you're saying there is a customer, which is again an assumption, and a problem for that customer that he needs to desperately be solved to whatever extent. Distribution and pricing hypothesis, where you know that you will be able to distribute it through certain channels, through emails, or through sales calls, through affiliates, through resellers or referrals, whatever it is, or viral campaigns, social media, press releases, media, all these are your distribution channels. These are all assumptions. Again, you don't know if it works and at what extent and what cost and how fast. Pricing hypothesis, again, people just arbitrarily price things where by this time, if you've done these 3 steps, you will know the pricing intuitively. Even after that, there are enough ways of determining what a good price is, and even pivoting on that. Again, there is no success criteria over here. We repeat this process. Everything is repeatable. Remember that. Demand creation hypothesis. How are we now going to create demand consistently day after day, where we get 10,000 people onto our website or 30,000 people on our website and increase it? What is our theory behind it? What is our approach, which is a non-exhaustive resource? So how do we do that? At least for a year, and we need to write this down. We need to actually prove it after that. To prove any of these is one of the ways is to simply get out of the building. As I said, just get to the customers, do trial runs. Right? Market type hypothesis. Again, we assume here that our company is resegmenting the market by saying, okay, we're bringing into the mobile phones. Is it really true? Those tests can also be done just to be on the safe side. Right? A lot of times you think you're creating a new market, but somebody changes small things in their market, in their product, and they're into a new market. You didn't know that it was so close. So if you think you're getting into a new market, one of the things you could say is, what is the closest market to this market? What is the adjacent neighborhood market over here? How quickly can I step over from that market into this? What money do I need for?
Can you give me another example from whatever you have done till now?
Yeah.
If you have done, so if you have, what was the hypothesis which you stated earlier?
Sure.
And how did you test it without getting into, with the minimal product which you said, right?
Yeah, I can. So one of the things that I had was, I can give you an example in the distribution hypothesis. One of the things that I still have, obviously, is a product which aggregates deals from Twitter. It's called dealsfull.com. Now what it does was, it semantically aggregated and rated deals that were there available on Twitter and posted it on a website. It would aggregate hundreds of them for every city in the US. And one of the problems with that was, how do I tell people that this site exists? How do I bring people into the website? So I started questioning my own assumptions as to how people will find this useful. So if they find my site useful, the site basically aggregates tweets. They should be finding tweets useful. They should be finding Twitter useful. I said, isn't the audience in Twitter? So I kind of went through that thought process, and then I, with this very small tweak, started posting all those back into Twitter as retweets. Okay. So what I did was, I would collect tweets, thousands and thousands of tweets every day, millions in fact, if you add up all the cities. Out of that, I would cream with only 100 each per city. That's about 35 cities that I have. So these 3,500, I would repost it back into Twitter by creating Twitter accounts which aggregate the best tweets. And people started following it because they realized that these are the best tweets which give 90% discounts and full-blown sales across. So the best value created, and hundreds of them every few minutes I would post. And this became a norm, and people started following that, and they started clicking on those links coming into my site because I added my link as well. And the site became more and more popular. And people started retweeting the sites. So following the distribution hypothesis and questioning my own distribution hypothesis led me to an insight, which meant that, oh, you know what, my target distribution channel is Twitter rather than the World Wide Web. And because I had already made that hypothesis, and that hypothesis was true, because people otherwise won't post reels on Twitter. So I was reposting those reels, which means for me as well, it's the same.
Right.
It's the same thing.
So that means, without creating your entire zing bang from the website,
exactly,
that people subscribing to your newsletters and then creating the entire website, getting so many pages out of it, you just retweeted those hand-picked tweets, and even if people are retweeting it, that means your minimum viable product is successful.
Absolutely.
So that means the website would also
be successful. You know, I could have easily done away with the website if my thought process earlier was tweaked enough. I didn't even need a website. I had a website already. I actually didn't need one.
Yes.
Because all I needed was followers. And thousands of these followers, I created deals full LA, deals full CA, California, deals full USA, deals full New York, and people would just follow these, people from that locality. And so, one of the, obviously the hypothesis testing led me to that. Competitive hypothesis, the last one is that you will be able to sustain against your competition and they won't eat you alive. And what is your hypothesis? Can you test it? And we'll get into that. We'll get into some more detail about that. Now we are getting into the product hypothesis over here.
So why don't we do a small hypothesis here?
Sure.
Look, we are doing this presentation.
Yeah.
Let's see how many people are finding this much part only useful. Because I think anyways we are getting out of time. So let's just take a few questions and see if what people are asking, is it fine or not? So that, and then we can take it up from there.
Absolutely.
There are enough interesting questions from people. So just two questions.
Just hold on, guys. We're just looking at the questions. What are the various standards of product development framework and how does it differ from services domain? Keshav asked. Keshav, it doesn't really differ that much because it's not about product development. As I said, it's about finding the customer. And if at the end of the day, if you suppose set out to do product development, but then you find the customer for who wants your services, then you pivot that way. Groupon is a service rather than a product, but they started as a product. So I hope that kind of answers your question. Which software development model is good? Well, I suppose the lean startup development model is the closest model. Jai Prakash asked me this question. Is the closest model which supports customer development, but it's not quite there yet. It requires some tweaks. As I said, that's another entirely different webinar that requires for that. Maybe I'll do it sometime soon.
Sure. So let's go back to the presentation.
All right. So sorry about that. Right. So, product hypothesis. If we get into it, where were we? We were dividing the set of hypotheses that we have. One of the hypotheses that we need to do is do the product hypothesis first. We need to list out all the features and why we think they need the features. List out a single page could be enough where you kind of list this out and then simply ask those questions. Do you think this works? Do you think this solves the problem? Do you think this happens? Benefits of it, therefore, how it affects the daily life, how it improves their life, what we think it is. Maybe that it doesn't. The feature might still work, but it may not have the benefit that we think it will have. Or they might be getting it elsewhere, or it might require some more for it to really get that benefit. Intellectual property hypothesis is just required so that you know very clearly that this belongs to you, if you're using any open source software or not. So the whole thing needs to be put together right from day one so that we work around that later on in the business plan. Dependency analysis, again, requires you to know if you are using any APIs, if you're using any cloud infrastructure which might change tomorrow, which increases your cost, therefore growing your business plan all over the place. So you want to know that your dependency is are clear, are known across the board. So you need to write that down and test it again. Now, product delivery schedule hypothesis, again, needs to be tested. How long, at least for a year, if not 2 years, you can kind of project what is the product delivery schedule will be. Is it going to be a feature every 2 days, 1 day, or a major release every month, every 2 weeks? Once you have it, you don't have to even test this because anyway you're developing your product, and you basically adjust your product delivery schedule according to what really happens. Right? Your learnings from, oh, you know what, we end up actually delivering it after about 2 months.
So that means you are just trying to test the capabilities of delivery, basically saying that I can iterate 3 times over a day
Right.
or 5 times over a week.
And also how then if it, how much money you need that for. So it affects your business. Because it's a hypothesis, what we say is in our business plan, we'll say in 6 months we'll develop this product with 18 features.
Right.
But how do we know? And with 5 people, can we really do that? Now, have you captured the metrics for it? Because reality is the best teacher, right? So if you have captured that, let's put the hypothesis. There's nothing wrong with the hypothesis. Put the hypothesis. As long as you put it on paper, then you can tweak it. All of these are tweaks after that. You keep repeating it. Every project delivery that happens, you say, okay, how long will it actually take? Tweak it. So take an average, tweak it, and rework on this page every time there is something that changes that page. Right?
So one of the biggest one is the product feature and hypothesis about that.
Sure.
That what will work with the customer.
Yeah.
So how do you test it if you don't have? You just can't ask them. They would not tell you.
Yeah. Yeah. I will come to that. That comes from the problem thing. So I'll come to that. In fact, that slide comes right next after this. Right. So total cost of ownership adoption by the customer. Again, this is a hypothesis that we have. We've developed Bing. It's a better product than Google. Why aren't people coming? People are not coming because of the familiarity, and there is a cost of adoption, cost of switching. And the cost of switching is a fear that, oh my God, I've been using Google for 5 years. So it's simply the benefits of, if you equal Google, it's not good enough. People simply will not switch from Google to any other system which is equal to that, because of the trust that Google has established, the whole other things that come with it, the tie-ups that come with it. So the cost of ownership or adoption of a service or a product is sometimes much higher than you think it is. Right? It's not about technology. It's not. It's a lot of it is feeling driven. A lot of people just don't use Google because they're just comfortable with it. A lot of people are waiting to leave a product. Right? Like maybe Facebook. There are a lot of Facebook haters who just want to jump out of Facebook for no reason. It just feels that way. Knowing that pulse and kind of tapping into that pulse is a part of customer development as well. And so the total cost of ownership is on the negative. So it's a lot easier to get into a Facebook market because there are a lot of people who are very worried about their privacy, looseness.
I think we will get over schedule by I think around 15-20 minutes.
Yes.
So just we are with the stretch.
Yeah. Okay. Very quickly, customer and problem hypothesis. So before we get into the product hypothesis, it is also important to write down the customer and problem hypothesis. Right? Here is what suggests the product. The product should come first because your idea then becomes, you get the satisfaction of putting the idea on paper. Right? Immediately as you put the problem hypothesis, you can tweak your product hypothesis. That answers your question. Then what you're presenting the customer in the beginning is never the solution. Never, ever, ever, ever put the solution in front of the customer. This is when you're developing it. You always put the problem in front of the customer and say, do you have this problem? Is this problem big enough? Is this problem something that you'll pay for? Will you even use it for free? Is it a must-have? How much of a must-have? What is the price you will pay? All these things can be asked. One of the things you should clearly know is you need to know the types of customers who will be the end users. End users will be the final guy who sits on your machine and types something in. This need not be the CEO. He could give it away to the secretary. So your customers could be the end users. So the secretary is the level of knowledge of the world, the English, or whatever is the thing is what your software engineering team's usability team should be focusing on, not the CEO. CEO buys the software, but then the end users could be an executive or even a clerk sitting. Right? So you need to know who they are, what their situation is, what is the level of technology they use, what languages they speak. You should have a pulse on them. Right? Influencers are who influences the decision, who talks about it. Is it bloggers? Is it other people in the company? Is it clerks who influence the CEO? Is the CEO influences CIO sometimes? CTO because his job is to scour the net for technologies. Then your languages in your collateral has to satisfy the CTO. Right? Even though the end customer is different and the buyer is different. So who are the recommenders? Recommenders could be books writers who recommend something. I'm recommending a book already during this presentation. Right? It could be bloggers, tweeters, it could be Facebook guys. Right. So you know where your recommenders are. You target them to be able to recommend your product. Therefore, the buyers get influenced. Right? You also know who the economic buyer is. Even the end users could be the buyers, but the economic buyer is the person who parts with the money. This could be the CEO, the person with the budget, the CFO, right? No, the CFO needs somewhere to be convinced. Believe it or not. You might just put it on hold, right? You never know. So you need to take that into account.
Like in the household, maybe the husband will be the one who finally shells out the money.
Exactly. So there must be something for the husband, is what I'm saying. You make something for the wife, but make sure there's something the husband doesn't hate it. Make sure it doesn't happen. So even for kids, all ads are targeted at parents, and even though the end users are kids, right? So decision makers are the people who finally make the decision. Again, in the husband-wife situation, wife makes the decision. Husband pays for it, right? So you need to know how to target that, how to target the price for the wife, the ability to say yes. That is at the wife's side, right? Saboteurs are people who will probably sabotage your effort there. So it could be, let's say, a technology guy who thinks that whole solution he can do it in a day, right? If he thinks that way and if he convinces the CEO, you will not be able to make it. You will also have people who have commissions that they're taking or some niceness going on with the competitors. So those guys will not allow anybody else to come in. They have some kind of agenda there. So you need to know that, right? These are the people who will sabotage your product. Customer problem hypothesis, other way of putting it is you should be able to ask the question to your customers. Imagine asking your customers, if you could wave a magic wand and change something, what would it be? What would it be? And for each type of customers listed above, for each of them, ask the same question repeatedly. What if there was a magic wand which I waved? What is the biggest problem I have which I wish to God would change? And it could be solved. That will give you an idea of what it is that they want at every level. At every level, all of these different types of people over here. Also should know, where does your product fit? Is it a latent need? What kind of need is this, right? Where if it is a latent need, they have a problem and understand they have a problem. That's all. They haven't done anything about it. They kind of have it, but they know also they have it. Active need, they recognize that they have it and are searching for a solution, right? If they have a vision, right, where they recognize and also build a custom solution, you are in luck. Now, ideally, if you are solving a problem like this, because they have already tried to solve it in-house, right. Now you can go to them and say, Mr. CEO, we are a technology company. Your business is not technology. Can we help you out? I think it makes sense for us to pursue this, and we will solve it exactly what you want. And typically, you also have an idea of what the solution should be there, right? A great find, if you ever come across something like this. If they have an in-house technology solution, maybe they've hired a database guy who puts an Excel sheet and connects them to Access, whatever. And that's what you need to solve. Describe a day in the life of your customers. You should be able to do this. Wherever this cannot be hypothesized, questions are listed and answers sought later. So what you do is this how your day goes, Mr. Customer? You go to them and say, this is what I imagine your day is like. What is your workflow like? What is it? Do you send press releases every day? What is it? What is it that a typical day looks like? Then you will be able to sneak into a day and kind of solve his pain points. You should be able to draw an organizational map and a customer influence map. We'll get into that later. We'll jump over that. Sorry about that. Justify the ROI for the customer on buying your product. You should be able to say what is the return on investment for the customer on buying your product, right? Not in terms of pricing, not in terms of my product costs $300. It's about just for the effort that person puts in. Is there a return on investment, right? Given the above, what is the minimum feature set that the customer would be willing to pay for? Not a paisa more than that, nothing more than that you need to get here, because you're simply focused on getting the customer to pay for it. And if it can do that, that's the feature set you should go with, right? So that's how you arrive at it after asking all these questions and answering them by the customers. Now the next, quickly we go to the next two steps. One of the things you need to do is describe your distribution and pricing hypothesis. Why do you think it will be $300? What is the reason for it? Put it down, doesn't matter if it is right or wrong, we'll test them. Put the 10 reasons that you think it should be that. What if it is not that? What if it's higher? Put those. What if it is lesser? What happens then? Put those, right? So justify those reasons. as well, and then we see if it stands the test of time. These documents will always keep changing, right? It could be 5, 6, whatever. Just need a paragraph of those. Distribution as well. Do you think your AdSense, Google AdWords work? Do you think cold funds work? Then we'll make those phone calls and see what works. How much it costs in 1 hour. How many successes can we make? 24 calls or 300 phone calls? We don't know. So once we have that, then we'll be able to tweak it. Now describe your demand creation hypothesis. What channels would you use to bring more customers in every day? This is pretty much down to distribution as well. What market are you in? We went through this already. Let's not get into that. If in an existing market, this is a market type hypothesis. I'm just going to go into the existing market one for now because Amit's interest. One of the few questions that you need to answer are, these are hypotheses. You need to put this down, answer it first, and then go to the customers and then validate it. Right? Who are the competitors and who's driving the market? Is there one big guy driving it? Is there a couple of people who are making a consortium and making up all the rules? You need to know who they are. What is the market share of each of these guys? Unless you know them, how are you going to beat them? Right? Is it 98%? Is it a dominant, spread out market? Is it a 1% dominating market? What is it? What is the money they will be spending to compete with you? What is the kind of backing they have? What was their last financial year like? Who are their funders? At will, can they raise $330 million and put it against you? These are things that you need to know. Do you understand the cost of entry against them? What does it take for you to enter? Right? To scale up to, let's say, 1% of them. What is the amount of spend you need? In AdWords, we know how much they're spending, what keywords they're using, how much you will need to sell to ad Google to be able to upsell that, right? What performance attributes have the customers told you are important? Now, this is very important. What is the performance attribute? You think it being faster is very important. Do you think the customer really cares? Is it in fact, about security? For a bank, it's about security rather than speed. Mostly customers don't care. Maybe they do care. Is it about the interface? Is it about visualization? Is it about language? How do competitors define performance? Now, after having customers told you that, you go to the competitors and see if they bloat about something. We are the fastest, right? Maybe they've done customer research and it's working for them. So that's one learning that you can have. And then you validate that learning. Now, what percentage is targeted to be captured and by when? So if you know that now who the players are and what percentage each one has, which is your easiest person to bring down? Who are you competing against? Now you're not competing against everybody. You're competing against 1 or 2 people. The percentage of that market which you want to take. So that's how you go ahead and get it, right? And therefore you can go back to this and revisit and say if you have achieved, what is your hypothesis and when? How long do you think it will take, given all these other theories that we have? How do competitors define the market? What is their definition? How big is there according to them? Their press releases. You can look it up and research it. Are there existing standards? Whose agenda is driving the standards? Is there an agenda behind it? Do you think speed is important or is it made up by the biggest competitor? Right? So then there is a task then of tweaking that agenda, right, to your agenda. Saying it's not important, this is more important. So that becomes a sales point, saying we are not into this. What you don't do becomes an important thing. Do you want to embrace the standards, extend them, or replace them? Right? Prepare competitive diagrams for cost benefit, feature technology. Again, I don't want to get into this right now because I could have.
So the examples that I'm recently seeing is the Google Chrome ads and TV.
Yeah.
Right. I think browsers are the old browsers are existing market. I mean, everyone is using browsers.
Yeah.
So what Google ads are saying, Chrome ads are saying that it is faster browser.
Yeah.
That's all.
Speed is the performance measure.
Speed is the performance measure.
Because it's an existing market. They're not trying to resegment it. They're trying to beat you by performance. Right. Faster, better. Something is about it. The metric is better. Right. They could have realized the colors could be better, but that's not what it is. So they've zeroed in on speed, and it seems to be working. If you're quickly resegmenting the market, couple of questions differ over here, otherwise it will be the same. What existing markets are the customers coming to? You need to know that. What are the unique characteristics of those customers? Right? Why are these particular customers dissatisfied with an existing market? What is that uniqueness about them? Once you can feel that uniqueness, when you can pinpoint that, put it into words, then you nailed it. What compelling needs are unmet by existing suppliers? Are you sure that nobody else can offer it? How quickly can they match you? Is it a 1 month thing? Is it a one-off thing? How quickly can they realize that they're not being met? what compelling features will get them to abandon their current suppliers? Is it enough? Is the feature set enough? Or they will simply ask their existing one to please supply that? Is it enough to, that's the ROI again, the cost of adoption. Why couldn't existing companies offer the same thing? Why didn't they? Make a guess, because it will help knowing maybe a secret which you didn't know. Maybe they tried it before and for some reason which you don't know of, it didn't work for them. So what size will the market be and for how long? Will the market change? But how long will this be like this? So you need to know that. How will you educate the market and create demand? Because there's an element of education here, because you are trying to create a new thing and create. Therefore, the education is a cost, right? And you need to try that out, and you need to measure it, be able to say put it into your costs, right? What are realistic sales forecasts, right? Realistic ones. So you have to base it on reality as well. But you can put it as a hypothesis and then base it on reality. So every of these hypotheses has to be validated. Are you looking to validate all the time? Create a market map, list in a circle all the markets that your product will draw customers from. So here you might find new markets. When you're resegmenting a market, you might suddenly, if you just put what other markets are around this, right? You might just find a new market from which you can also draw. Suddenly suppose you are redefining accounts, and you position yourself as a resegmented, redefined accounts market. Maybe you can draw the medical market for some reason. It's touching upon something. Maybe their medical techniques, accounting are very, very close to that.
But once you set these hypotheses, how will you test it?
You have to talk to the customers. What you do is you get out of the building. Get out of the building here means email, phone calls. The founder's job, the founders become the customer development people. They can also be product development. Product development can go simultaneously with it. The founders typically call every day, they make at least 10 calls. The idea is to touch upon 50 customers and hold these customers and develop for that customer set, right? And give them free offerings, whatever it takes, to build that product to satisfy the needs of those 50 customers, right? And you'll have to have a give and take over there. It could be friends, family, or close acquaintances, second level networks, or just call up a potential customer. That's the best way to do it. And many of these will be early evangelists. There are people who encourage these things because they know that, you can typically say that you tell me what needs you have. Give me an interview with you, right, for an hour. I will tell you exactly what's happening in technology space in your industry, right, So it's a give and take thing, and they will be able to supply that. And people do this. If they don't, then you have a bigger challenge there. If you can't even reach your customers, then how are you going to sell to them, right? To ask them questions, right? So then you need to solve that problem, right? So that's how you do it. If you're creating a new market, what are the adjacent markets? What is the compelling need? What is the compelling feature? This will be feature centric. When you're creating a new market, you don't need hundreds of features. You don't even need 5 features. You need one feature. Twitter is one single feature. I hope you all agree with it. Twitter is a single feature, right? And a feature becomes a new market. We've seen it repeatedly. New market creation is very, very easy. The product standards are very low, and the price margins are huge. But the entry points are very, very high, because you need to educate them. How long to educate? Because education becomes a big cost. How long to grow to a decent size? What size is that? Every new customer is very, very tough to get, right, in a new market. How will you educate the market? How will you create demand after that? What are the sales forecasts? How much financing while educating, right? You need to raise funds for that. What will stop a money-loaded competitor from taking over once you're cracked it? Now you've done all the hard work. Somebody else looks at it and says, this is a new market. Boom. They enter with a better performance. What is stopping it? That's where your next feature set will come. The performance improvements. Redefining the market. If you do yourself do it, then your competitors will not do it, right? You need to write it down and then prove it after. Is it possible to define it as re-segmenting or entering a new one? Are you sure you're entering a new market? Because we all like to believe it, we put it, so it's also a hypothesis again. So whether you're entering a new market itself needs to be tested. And then you ask yourself the question every few days and say, am I really entering a new market or am I simply re-segmenting? Right. Maybe I'm simply entering an existing market, I just didn't research enough. So many times I've seen product people who launch it and then realize there are 4 competitors already. They've never heard of it. It's happened. So that's how it is. Competitive hypothesis is a series of questions. Again, this is the last slide on my report. For all market types, if in a new market, assume the near market players might move in as competitors and answer the questions. Right? That's how you answer these questions, even if you're in brand new market. How have the existing competitors defined the basis of competition? What is the basis? Between 3 competitors, what do they fight about? Is it speed? Right? What is the factor by which they say we are better? Right? There could be 2 or 3. Right? Is it features? Is it service? Why is each one of them different? If you think you are different, what makes you think customers will care? You are different, but different is different from customers caring about that difference. Right? Hutke will not work. It needs to come from a need from the customer enough for that person to switch as well. Right? So it needs to be very, very powerful. If this were a grocery store, who would sit next to you? Right? In your competitors, who is the closest? Right? Even if you are a new market, will you sit next to somebody, even if it is at a distance? Who will be the closest to you? That gives you an idea of many ideas there. Who is the closest competitor and in what way? In what metric is it closest? What do you like about each competitor's product? You need to list what you like about them so that you kind of get a hypothesis. What do customers like again? That is another hypothesis that you need to put. If you could change one thing in a competitor's product, what would it be? Right? You ask that question to customers. What is the one thing you don't like about Google? That gives you a hint as to what it is that you can build on. Who use the competitors' products? What are their job titles? Is it CEO, CFO, CIOs, information security officers, accountants, clerks, all of these, many of these, in what portions, right? You need to research that by simply asking them. And what function do they perform? That means which area? Is it in accounts? Is it in function area? How do they use them? What is the workflow and the design flow of them? You need to study that. What percentage of their time is spent using the product? Is it every day? Is it 1 hour a day all the time? 1 minute in 3 months? You need to know that and therefore attach a value to it. How mission critical? That's the value. How mission critical it is in terms of time plus, not just in time, but just the value out of every second that they use it. Right? In the absence of your product, how do customers cope? Now, let's suppose your product is the loveliest product on the planet. How come the earth will survive without it? Right? You need to answer that question. How are people able to live without your product? Right. So that you need to ask as a question to the customer as well. Customer validation very quickly, last step is this. This is the second step of the refining steps. We set out to answer questions such as these. I'm not going to go into detail because customer discovery is the key step. Once you got that, it's very easy. You can refer to the book for the rest of it. Here we set out to answer questions like these. Do we understand the sales process? It's concentrating on sales over here. Now we know that we have already found the customer. We moved on. We know exactly who they are, where they are, and they're willing to buy our product. Now we need to understand the sales process, right? Is the sales process repeatable? Is it only me who can sell it? Is it only friends that I'm selling to? Is it rapport based, right? Is it friendship based? It should be repeatable by anybody, anywhere, right? And can we prove it if it is? Right? Can we actually do it? Can you instead of you selling it, send somebody else from your company to see if that same sale happens, right? And see what is the percentage there, right? What can we get the orders from the current product spec, right? Can we at this moment, without changing anything, can we get it? Because everything else is a hypothesis, right? Is the positioning correct? Change positioning a few times, test it with a few customers. Do you think this is honestly simply ask them? Do you think this sounds good? Is there a workable sales and distribution model? Again, the distribution channels, is it whatever? There are hundreds of them. We need to figure out what works and test them, each one of them. It all starts with the hypothesis. Are we confident we can scale it profitably? Profitability is finally the most important thing. You have revenues coming in, but at scale, will it still be profitable? Because I'm then hiring a lot of people, customer, servers, blah, blah, blah. Will it still make sense? Making sense is making profits, right? Right. Just very quickly what this is. We don't need to get into this. We'll just run through it. This is a book, Stephen Gary Blank, 4 Steps to the Epiphany. Pretty much everything here is being taken from the book. Right. You can get it on.
So it looks like we need to ask a lot of questions to ourselves.
Sure.
A lot of questions to customers.
Yeah.
I'm sure they're going to be bored with us.
Yeah.
But yes, it's an interesting take, I think, on the product development life cycle.
Yeah. Yeah.
We hope we'll try to implement few of them in Techie as well.
Sure.
Let's take it forward. Yeah. Right. So,
Jayaprakash has left.
fair enough. So, thanks, Girish. Thanks for your time. I think we had a wonderful discussion so far till now. And so, people can actually post their questions on techgeek.com if they have any further questions to Girish. Thanks a lot, Girish, and see you all.
Thank you. Thanks.
Our next webinar will be throwing light on HTML5, and our guest speaker will be Mr. Shwetang Dikshit, Web Evangelist at Opera Software. He's also the part of W3C Mobile Web for Social Development Group and Web Standards Project Internationalization Group. Hope to see you all next week.